And that's when you were furious and said you skied directly into my effing back at the top of your lungs.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I apologize for my bad language.
Your Honor, I apologize for interrupting the state earlier, but the state can talk the ears off a donkey.
Your Honor, may I just stand up for one moment to show the jury why I didn't wear name brand shoes at the office?
Everybody from lawyers to judges to court reporters, jurors, they all have an important and serious job to do in courtrooms across the country every day, right? And what can be brutal, emotional, sometimes mind-numbing testimony, it is occasionally broken up with a little bit of levity. So we're going to take a look at some of the funniest court moments that we have seen recently. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We're all human. We all sometimes have trouble keeping our emotions, good or bad, in check, especially in high-pressure situations. And I would say being on the witness stand at a trial, especially in a high-profile trial, pretty intense. And whether they mean to be funny or not, witnesses can sometimes crack up the court and the audience. And that is what we want to talk about. And I want to start off with the A$AP Rocky trial out in Los Angeles. So Rocky, whose real name is Rakeem Mayers, is a rapper and fashion mogul who's married to pop and R&B superstar Rihanna, but he is on trial for allegedly firing a gun at a former friend known as A$AP Relly. This allegedly happened on a Hollywood street back in 2021. Relly testified for several days on the stand. He said after a falling out, he and Rocky confronted one another. Rocky allegedly fired 2 shots, grazing Relly's knuckles. Relly wasn't seriously injured, but it was enough to move forward with charges by the prosecution. And here's something interesting. Rocky actually rejected a pretrial offer that would have meant 100 days in jail. Instead, he decided he wanted to take this case to trial, where prosecutors have now indicated that they are looking for a punishment of 8 years if he's convicted. Now, there has been a lot going on in this courtroom. You can actually check out our deep dive episodes of Sidebar over on the Law and Crime YouTube channel if you want a little bit more about what's been happening. But suffice it to say, the lawyers and the witnesses, they didn't really hold back.
Do you remember being asked by Mr. Kozlovic a few minutes ago today about text messages you sent with me so far? Are you with me so far?
Yo, you're annoying, bro. Just come on.
Are you with me?
We didn't even get to the case. Right. What are we doing here?
Are you keeping up? Stop. Are you keeping up with the question?
I can't keep up with him. I can't take him serious.
No. You got to answer the questions. He asks the questions. He's beginning to ask you a question. He just wants to know if you're keeping up with him. Just ask the whole question.
Sure.
That's A$AP Relly on the stand. He's often become irritated and combative with Rocky's defense attorney, Joe Tacopina, and the judge had to step in several times to tell everybody to just keep their cool. It even got to the point where the prosecutor here, John Lewin, who you might remember was the prosecutor in the Robert Durst case, was objecting to questions before they were answered.
So all those questions that you just asked for, how many minutes it was, sir?
Objection, argument, and question can't be considered.
The question hasn't been asked. The question hasn't been asked yet. It's premature.
Okay.
All the questions you were just asked by Mr. Lewin, did he once ask you?
Objection, argumentative.
Did he ask the question?
You've got to let him finish the question.
You're right.
You've got to let him finish the question.
You're right.
No, don't talk to each other.
Here's the question. Did Mr. Lewin asked you once if you fabricated those tapes like Mr. Efron swore to the jury?
Objection. Objection. It's irrelevant. It's also outside the scope.
Overruled.
No, I never asked him.
Never asked you that.
One of the final witnesses before closing arguments was Jamel Phillips, known in the A$AP hip-hop collective as A$AP 12V. And any of the defense witnesses that were flown in to testify got the same line of questioning from Prosecutor Lewin. Did you fly first class to get here? What about your hotel? Is it nice? Kind of implying, or seemed to be implying, that Rocky has all this money that he can throw at witnesses to encourage them to testify favorably for him. And by the way, even if it's not a direct payment, that they were getting some sort of benefit. So I want you to check out what happens when he questions Phillips about it.
Where are you staying right now?
Downtown at a hotel.
And I don't want you to give me the name, but is it a nice hotel, I assume?
It's a cool hotel.
And
it's downtown LA. You know the area of downtown LA is crazy.
yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer your question.
You understand.
What was that?
You understand, sir. We all do.
And at one point, Lewin lets Phillips know that this isn't really supposed to be like a conversation.
So this was a part of the project, you feel me? That's why he had it. So usually Rocky wears it to come out because he's the main artist. That's his whole look, you feel me? But that day, I believe, because Ills got into an altercation, he was hiding inside his skin.
Just so you understand, whether I feel you or not, I can't respond to your comments. When you're answering a question and you're repeatedly saying, you feel me, you understand that I can't respond to that.
I won't say you feel me.
Okay.
So, at the time of this recording on Friday, closing arguments are underway. The question, of course, will be, will A$AP Rocky face prison time or be found not guilty? We shall see. By the way, total side note, I was thinking about this. Over the course of our, 1,500 episodes of Sidebar? I don't think I've ever shared this, but I am a huge dog guy. I love them. But our family dog, Ryder, she's a special one. Look at her. Look at how gorgeous she is right there. And of course, I always want the best for her, which is why I'm so thrilled that Sundays is sponsoring today's episode of Sidebar. Sundays is made with 100% meat, muscle, organs, superfoods, zero synthetics or artificial preservatives. The breakdown on the back of the bag shows you exactly what a healthy diet looks like for a dog. By air drying the food, it locks in the nutrients and the delicious flavors. And now you can give your dogs the chance to try Sundays too. Get 50% off of your first order of Sundays at sundaysfordogs.com/sidebar or use our code sidebar at checkout. But moving forward, when it comes to rappers on trial, you gotta wake up pretty early in the morning to be more outrageous than the Young Thug RICO case out of Atlanta, Georgia. The trial of Jeffrey Lamar Williams, multiple co-defendants, just wrapped up not long ago after lasting a year. That's months and months and months worth of testimony. So unsurprisingly, we saw our fair share of wild moments.
Truly humble under God. That's what thug means.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing to be known as a snitch?
I really don't fully understand the term.
How then were you able to successfully sell drugs?
I never said I was successful.
Free fuck, mistrial! Free fuck, mistrial!
From drugs allegedly being passed in open court to witnesses refusing to cooperate, it was certainly quite the ride, to say the least. Now, I do have to say, Williams and his 5 co-defendants, they were facing some very serious allegations. Prosecutors wanted to connect them to the violent activities of Young Slime Life, YSL, a group that prosecutors argued was a criminal street gang. And the state accused Williams of being the leader of this alleged criminal enterprise that was behind a series of violent crimes, including murder, attempted murder, robbery, drug trafficking. Now, defense lawyers, they countered. They countered that YSL was not a gang, but it was a record label, Young Stoner Life, and a network of artists and friends who portrayed just a tough gangster image in their music to reflect life experiences, but that they weren't committing any sort of crimes. Now, to get into everything that happened over the year, that would take us probably like a full week, but what I want to do is kind of give you the highlights right now. So how about this? Witness Adrian Bean, this is when he admits that he is high while on the stand.
You just heard that you explained that you qualified it as the detectives and police. And I asked you the authorities, the police, the prosecutors, I just made it broad, that they forced Jeffrey Williams into it. Did you hear you say that?
Man, can I get a water or something? I'm so high right now, y'all. I'm about to go to sleep on y'all ass. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. Yes, you may. We're going to take a break.
That's right. He says he's so high, he might fall asleep. Unclear if the prosecutor caught what he was saying at the time, but we sure did. Now, the witness who undoubtedly got a lot of attention from those inside the courtroom and from those watching on our live stream was Kenneth Copeland, also known as Woody or Lil Woody. Now, Copeland had done interviews with Atlanta police telling detectives about crimes that Williams could have been involved in, and prosecutors had planned for him to be the star witness to talk about this, right? Didn't really go according to plan. You see, Copeland did not want to be there, and he was very adamant and open about that. But he'd been given what's called use immunity, meaning that anything he said on the stand wouldn't be used against him legally, although there was some confusion about whether that applied to federal cases too. But anyway, under use immunity, you can't really plead the fifth because your right against self-incrimination is already protected. It's moot. So you have to answer at that point, or the judge will hold you in contempt.
All right, sir. What's your pleasure?
Say what?
I said, what's your pleasure, sir? Do you wish to give testimony? I know you don't want to give testimony in this case, but you've been given immunity in this particular circumstance, use immunity. So are you going to testify?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Copeland, good afternoon. Do you want to be here?
Ma'am?
Do you want to be here?
I'm here.
Okay. Are you going to let me ask you some questions?
Okay.
How old are you?
Grown.
Okay, what does grown mean?
I'm an adult.
Okay. And when you say you're an adult, what number in years are you?
I plead the fifth.
Mr. Copeland, given the fact that you have invoked your Fifth Amendment privilege, but the state has already given you immunity under 24-5-507, this court holds you in willful contempt, and we'll see you on Monday. And we'll see if we can get some more testimony at that point in time. Take him into custody.
Yeah, so that was really over before it started, but after a long weekend in jail, Copeland was back on the stand, and he was there for days and days and days. There were a few breaks in there, but by the time he was finally released as a witness, it had been 3 months, okay? Now, during his testimony, police interviews he'd done with Atlanta PD, they were played. Interviews in which he seemed to implicate Mr. Williams. But Copeland said, actually, that was a lie. He was just trying to throw suspicion off of himself and any of his alleged criminal activity. So he told them what they thought they wanted to hear, that Williams was involved instead.
So how were you able to tell Detective Gaither that Nut and Thug was cool?
Because they're questioning me, and I'm trying to get them off of me, and she asked me questions about Nut and Thug, I guess, and I'm telling her whatever she asked me. Let's say she asked me a question about the sky. I'm gonna say, yeah, I seen the sky. It's blue. Whatever she asked me, I'm gonna agree to that. I'm gonna say whatever she asked me. If she asked me about this reporter right here, I'm gonna say, yep, she's sitting outside me with white tennis shoes on. I'm gonna say something. Just because I want her to believe I'm telling her the truth, that I want her to get me out of jail.
Well, she has on white tennis shoes, don't she?
Don't you got on white tennis shoes? She got on Chucks.
Right, and they white, right?
What color your shoes is? Okay. She got on Chucks.
So you telling the truth?
What color your shoes is? She said they white.
Right, so you're telling the truth then?
Well, it depends.
Now, Copeland was at times, at least appeared to be, easily overwhelmed by the prosecutor's questions, and he seemed to grow frustrated.
I made things up. I told you this before y'all brought me in this courtroom. And I'm telling you now. You asked me about 2015. I have got my life together. Y'all trying to put this on my conscience. Y'all trying to put people's life in my hands. I don't lied on people. I don't want to be here. Y'all have pressured me. I'm tired of y'all, because y'all know y'all are wrong. And y'all black people doing this to us.
And I understand that.
Leave me alone. Let me leave. Man, y'all pissing me off. Listen, I don't recall nothing I said to no police. Stop asking me these questions. Okay. I'm telling you, I don't recall.
I understand, but we're going to have to get through the questions. You can just continue to say you don't recall if that's what it is.
That's what you want me to say?
I want you to answer the question.
For just a minute.
Objection, improper instruction of the witness on how to testify.
I don't think that you were instructing him how to testify. I hope not.
Oh,
But
I
don't
am
instruct him how to testify other than truthfully.
Kind of hard to know how credible Mr. Copeland is, right? According to him, when Atlanta police brought him in for questioning nearly 10 years ago, he was scared that he was going to be arrested for something. So he claims he told the officers what they wanted to hear, which included putting the blame on Williams.
Okay, so this what happened.
Okay.
The police kept locking me up for whatever they could. Every time I came out the door, the police was on me. And they keep bringing up Thug name. So what I did was, to get them off of me, I said, Thug did this, Thug did that, Thug did, because I knew they would never, I knew he didn't do it. And in my mind, I knew that the police would never go mess with him. So it was easy for me to try to throw the blame off on him to get them off of me. And that's what I was doing from all these years. I don't remember what I don't told them in the past, but my whole motive was Thug did it because I knew he didn't do it, and they couldn't lock him up. And they keep talking about Thug, 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 Thug. So guess what I'm gonna tell them? Yeah. What else you want me to tell them? Yeah, he killed this person. Yeah, he did that. That's what I'm gonna do. And that's right now. If I walk out this thing and they say the police stop me now, hey man, give me something about Thug. I'm about to make something up about him again.
On January 11, 2015, when you went to speak to the police, when they called you, did they ask you about Thug or did they ask you about the murder of Donovan Thomas?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Did you go down to the police department on your own to tell them that you did not kill Donovan Thomas?
Did I go on my own?
Did you walk into the police department by yourself to tell them on the morning of January 11, 2015, that you did not kill Donovan Thomas?
I don't recall.
Okay. So you don't recall going to the police, or you don't recall why?
I don't recall none of that.
All right.
I just know that every time the police was after me, trying to get me, they kept bringing his name up. And I knew that they had me for what I had, so I was like, yeah, whatever y'all want me to say, I would say it. And that's what I told Gaither and Dennis, and that's why they kept coming after me, because they felt like, okay, they can make a case after him or whatever they trying to do. So they knew that, okay, we gonna get Woody today, he gonna have something to say about Thug, and it's wrong. And y'all is wrong because y'all know that I'm full of and y'all keep trying to drag me in here to bring up that y'all know I don't say it. Why is y'all doing it? Leave me alone. If y'all gonna charge me for what I did, I don't did the time for the crimes y'all caught me for.
I think it's fair to say just definitely an interesting character, to say the least, who is somewhat of a cult following of his own now, believe it or not. In the end, Williams ended up making a deal with prosecutors where he would plead guilty to several charges, including firearms possession and participating in criminal street gang activity, entered a no contest plea to racketeering and leading a criminal street gang. In exchange, he was sentenced to time served, which in the end added up to more than 900 days because Williams' many bond motions were ultimately denied. So he'll be on probation for the next 15 years, and the judge said he needs to stay away from the metro Atlanta area unless he's attending a life event like weddings or funerals or graduations. And if he steps out of line, he could go back to prison for 20 years. Williams promised the judge that he learned from his mistakes. Now, staying in the realm of celebrity legal trouble, we got to talk about Gwyneth Paltrow's case, her civil case, involving a man who said that the actress slammed into him on a Utah ski slope, causing irreparable and life-changing injuries. Talking about Terry Sanderson, sued Gwyneth Paltrow 2019, seeking more than $300,000, although his attorney said at trial that his injuries deserved millions of dollars in damages. But Paltrow had said, actually, he was the one who crashed into her. She countersued for just $1, saying she just wanted the truth to come out. And that collision happened at Deer Valley Ski Resort in Park City back in 2016. Paltrow is apparently an avid skier, had taken her kids to the slopes. But after Paltrow and Sanderson collided, the fun was over, and Paltrow headed back to the ski lodge while Sanderson was apparently taken to the hospital. This civil trial got underway in 2023, and it was something to watch for sure. We were in that courtroom. Sanderson's legal team argued that he sustained a traumatic brain injury and that since the two collided, he has seen a significant decline in his mental ability and quality of life. And although there was speculation that there might be GoPro video of the accident to definitively show who hit whom, that video never surfaced. So the only alleged witness to the crash was a friend of Sanderson's who said that Sanderson was downhill, and in skiing, the rules of the mountain, the person downhill has the right of way. So Sanderson himself then took the stand to defend himself, and he had quite the description of what he said happened.
I just remember everything was great, and then I heard something I've never heard at a ski resort, and that was a blood-curdling scream. Just, I can't do it. It was, and then, boom. And it was like somebody was out of control and gonna hit a tree and was gonna die. And that's what I had until I was hit.
That's what was going on in your mind.
Overruled?
That's what's going on in your mind when you hear that scream.
That was instantaneous. Oh my gosh, somebody's out of control. And they're really seriously out of control. Not time for a hockey stop. I didn't go think about that, but most people could avoid that, I think. Good skiers.
Okay. And I'll move on.
Okay.
So you.
All right, I think overruled.
He's overruled.
Thank you. So you hear this scream.
Yes.
What happens next?
You know, I got hit in my back so hard, and I'm right at my shoulder blades, and it felt like, and was perfectly centered, and the fists and the poles were right there at the bottom of my shoulder blades. Serious smack. Never been hit that hard, and I'm flying. I'm absolutely flying.
Now, you're not airborne.
Well, all I saw was a whole lot of snow, and I didn't see the sky.
Very animated, descriptive. But Paltrow, Gwyneth Paltrow, also testified, and the questioning was a little bit odd. Yeah, I think that's a fair way to characterize it. Some have commented that it seemed like one of the defense attorneys, Kristen Van Orman, maybe was a little starstruck.
You were going along relatively slowly. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to kind of ask you a couple
Sure.
questions. So let me know if anything I say is not accurate. Okay.
Okay.
So you're going down relatively slowly when all of a sudden you heard a strange rustling noise behind you.
Yes.
Okay. And you felt like a rush of air in a strange way.
Yes.
Okay. And two skis slid in between my skis.
That's correct.
And all of a sudden, there was a body from the whole front of a body pressing into my back.
That's right.
Okay. Like, we'll talk about this in a minute. And there was a man behind me pressing into me. How did you know it was a man?
Because he was making some strange noises that sounded male, and he was large. So I assumed it was a male.
Okay, he was large?
I felt all my back
Okay.
pressing.
Okay. All right, there was a man pressing behind me, pressing into me. I was extremely upset.
Well, I was confused at first, and I didn't know exactly what was happening. It's a very strange thing to happen on a ski slope. And then
I agree.
And I froze, and I would say I got very upset a couple seconds later.
Okay. Let me just continue on here. I just want to make sure that I got this all right. I didn't know if it was an intentional assault of a sexual nature.
Right.
Okay. Was he grinding and thrusting or something, or just the noises? What made you think it was a sexual assault?
So that was a quick thought that went through my head when I was trying to reconcile what was happening. I was skiing, and two skis came between my skis, forcing my legs apart, and then there was a body pressing against me, and there was a very strange grunting noise. So my brain was trying to make sense of what was happening. I thought, is this a practical joke? Is someone like doing something perverted? This is really, really strange. My mind was going very, very quickly, and I was trying to ascertain what was happening.
Okay. And I think you said, I didn't know if it was an accident, but he was groaning and grunting in a very disturbing way.
Yes, there was a sort of groan coming out of his mouth.
Okay. Then you said, I froze.
Yes.
We kept skiing.
Right.
We went to the right.
Yes.
We came crashing down together.
That's right.
Okay. You said this man was behind me on the mountain. My knee and our skis were still sort of tangled up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Our bodies were almost spooning, and I moved away quickly.
Yes.
And my knee splayed open, and I was completely in shock.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop there.
Okay.
And if the court and Ms. Paltrow, if you don't mind, since, again, when we did this over Zoom, would you mind stepping down and us kind of acting this out a little bit so I could get a good feel?
Let's see. Can we approach Your Honor?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I've said this before. I don't know if it was starstruck. I don't know if it was a strategy to kind of let her defenses down, but come down and act out what happened, yeah, that wasn't going to fly. So Van Orman pivoted and put herself into the role of Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay, Ms. Paltrow, so your counsel doesn't want you to come down, so I'm not going to ask you to come down.
That's inappropriate. The judge sustained the objection, so she shouldn't comment on what I want. It's what the judge wants.
The objection was sustained.
I am going to try and be both you and Mr. Sanderson at the same time.
Let's have Bob. Bob can be...
Your Honor, let's have Mr. Sanderson. He's here. Let's have him come.
I don't want to. We're not going to reenact what happened. I think you can ask questions, and
yes.
if you want to stand and move around in order to
Perfect.
help you with those questions, you can do that. But that's as far as we're going to go.
That's not a problem at all. All right. So since you're not down here, may I ask how tall you are?
I'm just under 5'10".
Okay. I am so jealous.
I think I'm shrinking though.
You and me both. I have to wear 4-inch heels just to make it to 5'5".
Well,
so
they're very nice.
Well, thank you. So, all right. So, as of right now, I'm Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay.
Okay. I'm skiing down. Can you tell me with my legs? I don't know. Again, I'm not much of a skier. Are you snow plowing? Are you parallel? Kind of orient my legs first of all.
So they talk about how Paltrow's skis were positioned for a while, and then Van Orman had a shorter Sanderson stand next to some taller attorneys, ostensibly to show that he was smaller in stature than Gwyneth Paltrow.
Now that Mr. Sanderson is here, and I don't need you to do anything, Terry, but just for comparison's sake, I'm in my heels. We're about the same height, about 5'5" with heels.
It's roughly.
Oh, tell me I'm taller, please. Okay, so we've got Mr. Sanderson that's about 5'5" that comes in back of you, and you said that you felt something huge. What was your word behind you?
No, just a big body.
A big body. All right. And was it just the front of his body that touched the back of your body?
I couldn't see in the back of my head.
Sure.
But I felt a body press against my back.
But there was no grabbing, like he didn't like grab your waist or grab your arms?
No, not at all. No.
Nothing like that?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. So you're down on the ground, and then you started yelling at him.
I don't remember if I started yelling at him while I was on the ground. I remember pushing away because I was very upset, and it was still very strange to me what had happened. And I pushed down the hill, and I turned around, and I yelled at him.
Okay. Did you scream before you went down?
I don't think so.
Okay. So if others heard a scream, you wouldn't, that wasn't you?
No, I froze. When he slid between my skis, I absolutely froze. And I don't remember yelling or screaming until I was very angry at what had happened.
Okay. And so you guys are on the ground, and then you said to him, I think you don't know if you were up or if you were still on the ground, but he was still on the ground, right?
Yes.
When you said, "What are you doing?"
Yes.
Okay. Like, why did you do that?
Yes.
And he said, "I think you skied into me."
Yes.
And that's when you were furious and said, "You skied directly into my effing back at the top of your lungs."
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I apologize for my bad language.
Some experts were brought in to give a rather complicated analysis of the conditions on the slope, the angles at which certain skiers would have to be traveling in order for certain things to happen. A biomechanical engineer hired by Paltrow's side summed it up by saying, Ms. Paltrow's version of events is consistent with the laws of physics. And in the end, the jury agreed, finding after only 2.5 hours of deliberation that Gwyneth Paltrow was not at fault for the collision and not liable for Mr. Sanderson's injuries. She was awarded the symbolic $1 that she had sued for. By the way, on the way out of the courtroom, Paltrow stopped to speak briefly with Sanderson, reportedly telling him that she wished him well. Paltrow had initially wanted Sanderson to cover her attorney's fees as well if she were to win, but after the verdict, the two parties agreed to drop the issue. Okay, moving on. Sometimes getting up on the stand is a defendant's best chance to convince the jury that they're innocent. Other times, it can backfire, and that seems to be what happened in the trial of Robert Tellis out in Las Vegas. To give you kind of an example of how odd this trial was, the defendant started saying his own name differently mid-trial.
Your Honor, our final witness is Mr. Robert Tellis. I've conferred with Rob Baer, and we're going to ask the court's permission to allow him to testify by narrative.
Okay, that is fine. Anything else before we bring the jury panel in?
Not on behalf of the state, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Tellis can take the stand.
You can spell your first and last name for the record.
Robert Theus. The first name is R-O-B-E-R-T. The last name is T-E-L-L-E-S.
Truth be told, I still don't even know how you say his name. I still don't even know what his name is. But it kind of gives you an idea of what you're in for with this kind of testimony, because there were certain parts that were just bizarre. But I'll tell you what, in the interest of fairness, we will go with Theus, since that's the way he said it. But I got to give you a little bit of backstory here. So Robert Theus went to trial last fall accused of killing a Las Vegas investigative news reporter, 69-year-old Jeff Gehrman from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And prosecutors say he did it because Gehrman had written articles about former Clark County Public Administrator Robert Theus and his office that arguably made him look bad. Now, Gehrman was stabbed to death outside of his home in September of 2022. Surveillance video from earlier in the day showed a person wearing an orange work shirt and a large straw hat walking near Gehrman's home. And police later found a cut-up straw hat inside of Theus's house. They also found damning online searches that Theus had done about Gehrman and where he lived, and Theus's DNA was found underneath Gehrman's fingernails.
And right now I want to say unequivocally, I'm innocent. I didn't kill Mr. Gehrman. And I've got a lot to share with you all.
By the way, Theus worked for the county handling probate matters, but things weren't going well within the office, and Theus was accused of having an affair with a subordinate, and Gehrman wrote up some stories about it. And after those articles came out, Theus lost his 2022 primary bid for a second term. That is a huge blow. So the prosecution, they spent days laying out the evidence against Robert Theus, and when it came for the defense to put on its case, Theus insisted on testifying, which is of course his right, but it was something his attorney had strongly suggested he not do. And in what was a very unusual move, the judge permitted Robert Theus to testify by way of narration. So that means instead of the typical question and answer format with his defense attorney, Theus could just talk and talk and talk and share his stories with the jurors. He can't really give an opinion, but he can lay out his version of events.
The medical examiner testified about how Mr. Gehrman was murdered. And, you know, I had to see pictures of Mr. Gehrman's body, you know, in preparation for the case. And it's obviously it's ugly. But when the medical examiner testified, that's the first time I'd learned how Mr. Gehrman was murdered. Now, you know, I think it's the way that he was murdered speaks to, I think, something or someone who knows what they're doing. You know, the idea that Mr. Gehrman's throat was slashed and his heart was stabbed. You know, I think that's, I mean, I don't know if anybody could just do that, right, without some kind of training, without some kind of expertise. So, I mean, and I'm personally not combat trained. I've, you know, none of that. So I just, it seems to me that when I heard that, I thought, you know, my God. You know, so that's, I guess, one example of like the type of opinion I'll be sharing with you. And I want to also provide relevant facts, the truth, and things that I think are going to tend to disprove a lot of what has been said. And also when it comes to some of the witnesses, some of the documents that I'm going to try to get in are going to kind of go to whether or not they're being truthful. So again, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get those documents into. I guess we'll see how that goes as well.
So Tejas addressed some of the evidence that the prosecution had presented, including the fact that he drove the exact same car seen on video surveillance near Gehrman's home, and that he had a cut on his finger from a knife. Remember, Gehrman was stabbed to death?
Here, this General Bob Custer, I'm not sure who the gentleman is, but he says that the Las Vegas murder suspect vehicles have a different spoke pattern. Most vehicles have wheels with matching patterns. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, okay, well, obviously it's not my car because my rims all match. And so that was the substance of that conversation. But later I thought, well, holy crap, excuse me, sorry. Like, my gosh, it still can't be a coincidence that the killer is driving a vehicle that's like mine. So I started to get really scared. Right? It couldn't seem to be any kind of coincidence that this person was driving a vehicle that was just like mine. Thank you, sir. So I went outside, just double check, make sure I'm not losing my mind. I looked, I'm like, okay, well, my rims match, okay. And so I went ahead and started washing the cars, trying to just take my mind off things, And I watched the 3 cars, but there's been a debate about whether or not law enforcement knew 1 or 3. And that is what it is. Then at night, after dinner, I started making, cooking for my daughter's lunches. My one particular daughter, she won't eat like the school lunch, or she didn't at the time. So I'd make her chicken fried rice off of like a Google recipe. I was distracted, I inadvertently cut my finger.
So according to Robert Tejas, he was being set up by a real estate company. Yeah, that is one I haven't heard before. He says his office was investigating alleged wrongdoing by Compass Realty, and he claims that they sent someone, possibly a professional hitman, to kill Gehrman and frame Tejas as the murderer.
But the fact that Mr. Gehrman was killed and was put on me, that they just had a serendipitous benefit from that. Now, the interesting about, this situation, and I guess, I had done my own research on cases, and I had found that there were actually cases where even DNA evidence had been planted. There was a case where apparently it was an officer-involved shooting, and the police were pretty sure they had their people.
Objection, relevance?
The objection is sustained.
Well, it goes to my theory, but I guess we'll have to save that for later.
Now, much of Tejas' testimony was full of rambling anecdotes and digressions. You never really knew where he was going to go next, and oftentimes he wasn't even allowed to go there.
I'd like to show the two, my jeans versus the killer's pants. I personally don't believe that they look the same.
Right, sustained.
And I'd like to also note that none of my other pants, jeans, or anything else were taken from my home on the day of the search. As a result of my jeans being taken from me that day, I was put into that paper suit. And you've seen the photo of the paper suit. And the room was cold. I asked, when I attempted to have the temperature adjusted, there was no help there. So I spent the day freezing in that paper suit.
And Tejas' testimony, by the way, took another strange detour when he talked to the jury about the kinds of shoes he wears.
Your Honor, May I just stand up for one moment to show the jury why I didn't wear name brand shoes at the office? Just for a moment, and
You just want to stand up?
right where I'm at.
Yes.
Okay. So, I don't know if you notice the height difference. I wear lifts in my shoes. I'm about 6'5.5", and call it a vanity thing, right? I just wanted to feel a little taller. And so, if I may just demonstrate why this is important. So, these shoes that have built-in lifts, they're designed in a certain way where they don't slip off a person's foot when you're wearing them. Right? You can see how this is so elongated because there's a lift in here. Right? So you can't put. It's not, from when I've tried, I could not put a lift in a name brand shoe because that shoe would slip right off. There's not enough of the back of this, once that lifts in there, in order to grab a hold of your foot. So essentially, I'd be kicking my shoes off every time I walk. So, I never wore, again, any type of name brand shoe at the office, and I think that's something that will likely be discussed at closing, and how that's relevant.
And when it came time for cross-examination, the prosecution pointed out that if this were a professional hit, the hitman wasn't very good.
You had mentioned one of the things that struck you was you watched the autopsy, or you saw the autopsy photos, and you were struck by the violence of it, correct?
No, sir.
No, you did not? Were you bothered by the photographs?
I was.
Why is that?
Gruesome. I'm not used to seeing dead people.
Okay. I think you said it was ugly. Is that correct?
I may have.
All right. And you had told this jury that you felt like it looked like someone who knew what they were doing. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You believe this was a professional hit?
And that's what I believe.
Okay. And you believe this killer is kind of almost like someone hired to do this job, like an assassin, essentially, right?
That is what I believe, yes, sir.
All right. Now I want to take a look at this picture for a second. The assassin seems to be wearing a giant sun hat. It's a pretty big hat, right?
Yes, sir.
It's fairly noticeable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You think that might attract attention?
I would think so.
Okay, but this is a professional.
Right.
All right. And this professional is also wearing a bright orange shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
Professional?
Yes, sir.
But wouldn't that attract attention?
I think that's part of the reason, actually. If I could elaborate.
No. You believe that professional assassins want to draw attention to themselves when they're carrying out murder. That's your testimony?
When they're framing someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes. You believe professional assassins like to draw attention to themselves.
It depends on what the nature of their goal is, and if it's to frame someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I want to turn our attention to slide number 72. This is after Mr. Gehrman has been killed, but if we watch this footage, isn't it true that we see the killer come back to the scene?
Yes.
And the killer seems to be looking around as if he forgot something, right?
I've watched the video. I don't know what he's doing.
We don't know.
Right.
But we know a professional killer killed someone in broad daylight, made it a point to park on a completely different street, but then for some reason decided, oops, I forgot something, and drove all the way back.
My belief is that he wanted to make sure to commit the crime, and then when he was done, he wanted to make sure the SUV was seen in front of the house.
So let me get this straight. We've watched the footage, right, Mr. Tellis?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that the Yukon parks on Wintergreen initially?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the streets, but I mean, if you say so, yes.
We'll put it to you this way. He didn't park on Bronze Circle, did he?
Not initially, no.
And by your logic, if the killer wanted to be seen, shouldn't he have just parked on Ron Circle originally?
I would have thought that, if he wanted to make sure he got the job done first, that he would not have actually parked the SUV in front to begin with.
Oh, so
That's my belief, because,
okay.
again, that isn't me.
So you have a killer who goes all the way out of his way to park on a completely different street, walks the whole length, does the killing, drives out of the complex, and then makes a U-turn, comes all the way back into the complex, pulls up, gets out, looks around for something, and you believe that's all part of the assassin's plan?
And again, I don't know what he's doing in that video.
No, I'm just using your words, your thought process.
Absolutely.
You believe that was all part of the plan?
I do. It wasn't me, so.
Sir, doesn't that look a little amateurish?
I would like to think that I wouldn't use my own car if I was actually the person who did this.
Well, well, doesn't it look a little amateurish to take the steps to park on the side of the street, then you forget what you dropped, probably your murder weapon, who knows, wear this goofy sun hat, a bright orange shirt. I mean, you really think that looks like a professional killer?
I do. Again, it wasn't me, so
Okay.
yes.
All right, sir. If they hated you so much, why didn't they just kill you?
That's a really good question, and I would like to answer it.
Well, what do you think happened? The jury found Robert Tejas guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced him to 20 years to life in prison. And during his sentencing hearing, the judge invoked sentencing enhancements for use of a deadly weapon and because of the age of the victim. So that added 8 years to the minimum sentence, which means Robert Tejas won't be eligible for parole until he's spent nearly 30 years behind bars. And that's when he will be in his 70s. So the legal world is certainly a unique place, full of wild tales, shocking evidence, and sometimes even a little bit of humor. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.